Since the dawn of time, man has asked, can one become a giant fire demon? Well, in today's video, I'm gonna find out. Thanks to our sponsor, HeroForge. We have this sweet series of videos where we kit bash models using their software, taking it to the absolute extreme and showing you at home how you can create the perfect, unique model for whatever you need one for. Do you need the ultimate greater demon that fits into your themes for tabletop wargaming, or maybe the big bad for your D&D campaign? Well, today I'm going to show you how you can use the software in HeroForge to do pretty much anything you want. And I'm gonna do it using the generic HeroForge dude. That's right, I'm just using this armature and all my skills, everything I've learned kit bashing to turn him into a crazy fire demon. This one's gonna be fun and it should really test my ability to use HeroForge and push it to its limits in a whole different way. Let's do it. So whenever we do these long screen recording sections, I always think, how can I sort of put my head out of the way? Because people always want to view what's on the screen, but they also kind of want to be able to connect with my face as a presenter. So the first thing I like to do when I'm in HeroForge is find my core inspiration. There's just a huge number of options in HeroForge these days for heaps of different creatures, different races, aliens, animals, and every time you go back, there's more stuff. So I always just take a look and see if I can get the vibe right. So after playing with all the pieces, I decided to go with something a bit draconic. I'm actually thinking of making a kind of T-Rex, like a fire demon, but very inspired by like Dark Souls. Now the big challenge with functionally making a dinosaur is that I have to make the legs digidegrade. And as I said, I'm making this just from the armature of a man. So ultimately, that means using the feet in a bit of a different way. I'm gonna need to build the creature's toes later, but I can use the knee joint, ankle joint, and hip joint, as well as using kit bashing to change the core pose of the model to sort of levitate the legs in the air where I'd like them to go. There are presets for a crystalline or rock body, which allows me to get the foundation of what is going to be like an ash, fire, and lava demon. The more work you can do outside of kit bashing with the core tools of HeroForge, the easier your time will be. Okay, I don't think I can stay up here any longer. Ah, good. It seems falling from the roof made me no-clip through the floor of this digital hellscape. Well, while I'm here, I may as well talk about modifying the proportions of this beastie. You see, humans and dinosaurs don't have the same proportions. So if I'm gonna have my Saurian-style demon looking good, I'm gonna need to change its proportions. And some key proportion changes here are going to be the hips and the upper legs. They need to be way bigger and proportionally way bigger because this is a bipedal animal that leans forward, so a lot of its weight's gonna need to be at the center. So I pull the hips apart, stretching them away from their points using kit bashing, and then expand the size. The upper body, neck, and head also needs to be stretched out and moved, as the way dinosaurs' heads connect to their bodies is different to humans as well. There was no crystalline dinosaur tail that was suitable, so I went for this crazy cool alien tail. Tails in HeroForge are super useful because they have heaps of modifiable points. And how I blend the tail into the monster, we'll get to later. For this to transform from derpy T-Rex into fire demon, I really need to work on the head. So with that basis of a draconic head, I need to find the right horns. So I go through the library of assets in HeroForge, finding what I need until I get the vibe I'm going for. I'd used a bunch of reference art and several of them were more humanoid, but one thing I really liked is this Ifrit style flaming head. So I decided to do 2 sets of horns and then stick a jolly campfire in between those horns and create the illusion of fire burning across his head. Now this will come through in the paint job. I have faith Murray's gonna pull this off really well. The next change I wanted to make was to create a more Saurian vibe. It was to reduce the number of digits he had. So I made sure that my dinosaur would live long and prosper by using the joint manipulation in each finger to basically, you know, why can I only Spock on one hand? To basically do the Star Trek hand, but also clip those fingers together. And by effectively doing this, we made little dinosaur paws. At this stage, you'll see I like to move across the model, working on different areas as they please me. And if I run up against a dead end, it's a really good idea to change what you're doing. That way you can keep momentum on the project and come back to areas that you're having a bit of trouble with later. And in this instance, I wanted to get the overall silhouette of the model looking good. So I added some huge demonic wings. But once I put the wings on, I could tell that I was losing a bit of that Saurian vibe. So I had to thicken out the neck. And to do this, I'm using a bunch of crystal parts in kit bashing and sticking them all around and clapping cladding the front of the throat of this monster. Now, one thing that's interesting here is Hero Forge used to have a kit bashing limit of 20 parts per model, which I found quite constrictive. But they've actually changed it to a system based on polygonal complexities. Effectively, less complex objects added via kit bashing, you can add more of, and more complex ones less of. In practice, this means things like cladding a model with small, simple polygonal crystal objects, rock objects, is actually doable with far more pieces allowed in kit bashing, which is a super cool change. I actually really like this one. With some of the cladding on the neck and torso done and the proportions feeling a bit better, I wanted to go back and attack those fingers. And ultimately, I did find some that I liked. So in the end, I actually replaced those fingers, the Spock fingers, by shrinking them down to tiny little nubs and just putting horns over the top of them. So we have this nice little iguanodon-esque claw hand thing that's going on. It's pretty cool. So one of the things I thought as I looked at this beast was these 3 digits leaves his hands looking a little bit too much like a toy. So I looked to a lot of animals in nature and realized many of them have a dew claw further up their body. So given that it was a more atrophied part of the model, instead of using a horn, I decided to use this crystal piece. So it looks like this dew claw is so rudimentary, it barely gets used. Hold on one second. Yeah, it's the Windows customer support guy. It's always a chatbot these days. Yep, get me out of here. Have you tried turning it off and on again? Couldn't hurt. Oh, I'm so back, literally. Thank God I'm out of there. Still doing cringe narrative structures like it's 2009 YouTube. But hey, it's the effort that counts, isn't it, guys? Now that I'm back in the real world, I'm reluctant to get into the digital world again. So we're just gonna cut back and forth. That makes way more sense to me. And it's time to work on the feet. Now, the placeholder feet that I had in there obviously have to go. We've got to build out a more draconic vibe. And what more perfect object can you do that with than, you guessed it, a tail. Because as I said earlier in the video, foreshadowing, a tail is one of the most versatile objects in Hero Forge as they have so many articulation points. And when you're working with small scale, you can get away with a lot more than you'd think. So this dinosaur's feet are made of 3 bushy tabby cat tails, each one bent up and following the contours of where the toes should be, and I'm able to articulate them at every point along that step. Now, they don't look much like feet until suddenly you add those horns into the tip of each of them, and then I use a few small pieces of rock to clad the front of each toe, giving a bit of texture to it and helping to blend it with the foot and ankle. I can then also build out the structure of the feet and ankle so I can properly mirror the proportions of a dinosaur's foot or a dragon's foot, and suddenly, voila, this human foot and ankle and Ugg boot of a lizard foot are all gone, and we're replaced with something that looks like quite a convincing draconic foot. But to make it even better, I'm going to use some fire so that when Murray paints this, it looks like the demon cracks through the lava with every step and brings fire gushing up from beneath. With the second foot posed, I could move up to the back of the model and start to bulk out the back and tail. I mentioned I was going to join it to the model, and this crystal cladding technique I've been using throughout the whole project comes into its own here, as I can place larger chunks of crystalline components, overlapping them and overlapping parts of that alien tail, until eventually the whole thing becomes seamless. Now, when I looked over the whole model, there was one thing I wanted to change, which was to slightly change the posing of the wings to make it all look a bit more aggressive and cohesive. And that was a simple change, and then I could export all of the parts. But before I did that, I wanted to see if the vibes were working. So I jumped into Hero Forge's paint mode. They have a color tab where you can paint all the individual components and come up with practice paint schemes for your models. Here I could see how a dark ashen vibe with the model would go really well with these flames. And honestly, this color tab is what convinced me to keep the flame elements on the sculpt, because I wasn't sure that they would work or be readable until I could do this digitally. It's a really useful tool. You can also buy and export painted models for virtual tabletop or get them color printed. So the painting tool is not just a digital tool for helping, it also has practical flow-on uses. And lastly, I get all of my component parts as digital STLs, and then I take them into Blender. Then use the Boolean function. You grab all of these, press Ctrl J to join them, and then go down to your modifiers and remesh them. And then I can 3D print it for Murray to paint. Now, I am setting this to print, and then I have to go and edit. That's kind of my job now. I'm editing the previous video while I've done my part on this one. So with me doing that, that means I'm not gonna get to see Murray's finished product until the end of the video. So I'm really excited to see what he's done with it. All right, so many people want to know how to create their own model. Not just in Hero Forge, I mean, just in general. How do I design my own minis? I've always wanted to do it. Well, as someone who can now 3D sculpt their own minis, I genuinely think a great way to start if you're not sure if you're gonna like it is to play with Hero Forge. Learning how to use the kit bashing tools that you can get with a Pro subscription is a great way to learn how to understand manipulating objects in 3D space, joining them, what creates aesthetic designs, using the amazing and massive and expansive library that Hero Forge have curated. The best thing is these creations are immediately usable. You can digitally paint them in the software and you can export them in so many varieties now. You can get 3D printed models, STLs for you to 3D print yourself, acrylic standees, and even exports for virtual tabletop or tokens. You can use their camera functionality to pose and take photos of miniatures you create. It's completely free to try and make your models. You can do all of that before any paying. I'm a frequent user of Hero Forge. We do their videos all the time. They're huge supporters of the channel, and we would love it if you could check out the links in the description and go have a play with Hero Forge, maybe pick up a model or two. We have a code, Tabletop Time, and that gets you 10% off those digital STLs. So if you'd like to use that, it's a great way to get started.
The first step for making any boss monster worth its salt, or lava pool, is to make a big epic base for it. And once I'd grabbed a suitable size, I started cutting out plasticard. This is going to make a slate floor, that rough, flat, rocky surface of a cave that the heroes have stumbled into and discovered the monster. And to do that, I start cutting out a jagged crack that is going to go through the middle. The more angular and also organic I can make these cuts and cracks, the more natural it's going to look. Makes sense, right? So I'm going to cut away at these and also bevel some of the edges so it doesn't look like hard cut edged plasticard. Now that I've glued all my nice plasticard terrain onto the base, it looks really cool. However, the surface of it is still very clean, sheer plastic. So I'm gonna get some Mod Podge, or just PVA glue, and then get a really crap brush and just stipple it all over, forming these little peaks, as you will, as I jab with that crap brush all along the surface of the plastic. And you get this really interesting texture that's gonna show up when the PVA dries, which will make a much more satisfying surface than just uninhibited plastic. Then when I'm happy with that, it's time to glue the monster straight onto the base. Giving it extra time to make sure that it's properly set on the base before I start waving it around, because this is a big model and the last thing you want is a big piece of resin to fly off your base. Then I go and give it a nice prime of black. This is going to be the magic thing, despite the fact that this is going to be a very bright, glowing monster. I'm going to start with the black because that's what most of it is going to be. It's going to be mostly a dark, rocky color. Then my first step is to start painting in blues and greens. I want that sort of moody, damp, dank cave look. And it's also going to highlight some of the rocky surfaces and angles on all of the facets of the rock terrain that's on the monster itself. And with this foundational stage done, it's time to start working on the fun stuff, which is all the glowing lava. And to do that, I'm going to get a really fine brush with a nice pointy tip and start painting in some white lines into the deepest crevices here, namely around the flames, as you might expect, but also into certain areas of the rock. I want it to look like it's emanating within, like there's a furnace beneath some of these rocks. So specifically, I'm going to have some straight on the chest and also on certain parts, anywhere I think there's a big meaty piece of monster, if that makes sense. Like that's where the most blood flow, lava flow would be within the monster. And I'm basically using this to show this is where the most heat would be within the beast. Basically, I'm just making points of interest and really making you look at the anatomy of the monster that Dave's done a fantastic job on. Now, once I've done that and I'm happy with the level of white, I want a nice opaque level of white, not just a bit of a streaky white in some of the recesses. I'm going to go in with an airbrush with the same white, and I'm going to blast a sort of gradient sphere around it, right? So it looks like there's a bit of white glow emanating out of all these cracks. That's what's going to give that really nice vibrance and glow effect to the whole thing. When I'm happy with that, it's time to start working on the colors, and I'm going to go with a really, almost a neon green. It's a greeny yellow, and you might be wondering why I'd be doing this. You know, fire is traditionally just a sort of pure red and yellow, right? Yes, that's correct. However, having a really strong, vibrant color of this type will allow me to then put a more transparent yellow and orange onto the top of this, and that will make it look a bit more vibrant. Trust the process, he's going to look a bit like a lime monster to start with. Drink break. Then I am immediately going to start painting in that orange I promised. And you can see from how it spills out, I'm just being really liberal with this and I'm allowing it to spill over everywhere. And you can see where I haven't painted white, the orange is going onto the blacks, blues and greens in a really sort of muddy color. Whereas on the white, it's super vibrant. It's going straight onto that white and lime yellow as a filter and you get this immediate pop. It's fantastic and it really feels warm, right? That's the idea, and all we need to do is start layering all of the colors. So from here, straight into the red, and we can then start painting in some of the darker, oilier reds and blacks to really push that contrast. And then for a final flourish, I'm gonna start doing a brown, a really dark brown. It's almost a black. I'm just gonna lightly apply this to the very tippy tops of the flames, but also then dry brush it onto all of the magma scales all over the creature. This is gonna do two things. One, define all the shapes on the creature, but two, because this will be as far back from all the glowing within the recesses, it's going to give that added shading, like superimpose. You see someone standing in front of a fire, they're going to appear black in comparison to the fire, right? So that is the effect that we're getting here, and it's already looking really, really effective. Then for the eyes and mouth, I'm going to go a little bit extra, add a bit more yellow and even just a little dab of white into the mix so I can make the eyes and the throat glow. That's going to be the hottest parts. It's the closest to like the internals of him that you can see. Then there's all the extra details. He's got wings, but I don't want it to look too fleshy. So I'm going to take the original blues and greens and start adding in some khaki, just getting it a little bit like leathery rock, if that makes sense. You know, really going with that gargoyle vibe here. And then the claws. It would make sense if the claws were also the same dark rock, but also visually, I really want to communicate that he's got big, sharp, pointy teeth and claws. So I'm gonna go for a more bright, almost like a silvery gray rock. Get that real sheen, that real pop that, you know, you immediately notice that he's got giant claws everywhere. When I'm finished with that, it's time to start dry brushing the rest of the base, and here, this is where all the extra spillover from the airbrush really adds something, because it looks like the glow is emanating out from all the fire on the ground. Half our work on the base is already done, so I just need to dry brush some gray around the edges, and ta-da! I can paint the trim, and he's done.
So how do independent content creators and YouTubers survive these days? Well, it's patrons. It's people who support the things they love. And I would not be here able to have a job, able to support my wife and child if it wasn't for the patrons. Thank you so much for your support. If you'd like to join up, we have a really cool mini Discord where we all chat. You can chat with me and Murray in there. We also do a mini review every month, and we do behind the scenes videos and sometimes extended cuts. There's heaps of stuff we do. We do have some new patrons. When you join up, we shout you out. So I'd like to thank Bryce Newberger, JH, Skinny Man, Shadow Wolf, C. Siamka, Lee Enfield, Arturia, Jambles, and Flamfang. Welcome to the fam, Flamfang. Welcome to the TTT team, everyone. Murray, I haven't seen this. Okay. Everyone else has seen this because they saw the reveals, but this is my first time seeing it.
Shockingly, he actually avoided seeing it.
This is very cool. Well, I've been in the editing booth for the last couple of days, so that's just the new order.
In the big boy chair.
I liked it without me actually saying anything. I was just like, here, Murray, paint this. You did what I envisaged, which was having envisaged, having the sort of lava in the cracks. It looks really cool.
Yeah, sort of, I know, I got real, like, sort of Balrog vibes from it, you know, that sort of, like, lava monster.
Yeah, well, that was kind of the intent. I really wanted to see if I could make, like, a demon or a dragon from a man. So knowing that that's his feet, like, and that he's got cat tails for toes, it's just fun. The things you can do with Hero Forge are great. So well done, Murray. This looks awesome. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you to Hero Forge for sponsoring the video as always, and go and explore the things that you can do with kit bashing, because if you can turn like generic D&D man into this, you can do anything.
What can you do with cat tails?